What's going on, everybody? Man, I got my haircut, dude. I got my haircut on Friday, man.
Yeah, it's you came on the screen, we had a phone call and your hair was that short and I was like, what did you do to your head? And it just takes a while for me to remember what you look like without your hair being like extremely long.
And if you're listening to this in the future and say, what's the big deal about getting a haircut? We're right in the middle of COVID-19, and my haircutting place is the only one in the whole Ogden area. My Great Clips at the bottom of the hill is the only one that opened up. And I got my haircut, and I had to go in. It was the craziest experience ever, Matt. I had to have on, when I go out and I weed whack, or when you sand things, when you sand paint or whatever, or when you're getting ready to paint, sanding down the wood, I have one of these like ridiculously looking masks like that, like you would see out of a scary horror film. And that's what I wore while I was sitting there getting my hair cut. But man, it feels good. I went out and got some sun yesterday. I pulled my quad playing soccer on a field with a bunch of people a third of my age. But I had a great weekend, man. It was a really unbelievable weekend. And I'm so jazzed for today's show because we have so much we have to talk about. You know, Friday we had that kind of emotional intro from me about what's going on with our business. And then we had this awesome show with Shannon and Brian O'Keefe. And then I went to the other broadcast. You finished it up. I listened to the end of it. You did a great job. And now it's Monday, man. And I feel so refreshed.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I said it last week and I'll say it again this week. When you do something daily, it really does take a lot out of you. And all the planning, the prep work, the post-show work of getting everything archived and uploaded for our podcast, which you can now listen to on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, pretty much any podcast app. So if you're listening on there, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't listened on there, go give us a shout. And yeah, it's really exhausting, honestly, to do this day in, day out. So to have the weekend, I come in fully refreshed on Mondays. And I think that's important for today, considering that we have possibly our greatest guest of the show yet.
Yeah, and yesterday getting set up with Marshall was awesome. We'll bring him on here in just a few minutes. But I do have a few things that I need to get to here today. Some new things for the program as we evolve. Today is episode number 16. And as you mentioned, we are available now over the weekend. Breaking news. We got approved for iTunes, which was the last one we needed for our podcast platform. So welcome to iTunes Inside Bowling Show. And we've got about, I think, 8 or 9 of our past episodes over there archived. I'm hoping to get to the rest of them tonight. It's one of my last things I'm going to do today. And then we'll be uploading these daily so you can listen to the audio form if you can't watch the show. So really excited about that. One other thing that I've been struggling with is there's been a lot of birthdays that have happened and we don't really get to birthdays. But today, I'm not saying it's going to be a normal thing that we're going to do, but yesterday was Dave Lamont's birthday, and he was our first guest ever on the show. So happy birthday to Dave Lamont. I also just saw this come across my news feed this morning. I'm a football guy. We like to talk about other sports. I'm sorry to report the passing of Don Shula, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Died at the age of 90 today. So shout out to Don Shula, all the Miami Dolphin fans, and to his family. Sorry to see the passing of Don Shula. I talked about my haircut. One of the other things is we recently, with our man Gray from the Ringing 10, we are now releasing a best of our show from the week, if there is such a thing, the best of our show. And we released that late last night as the edit got done kind of late. And we're using clickbaity type titles on these. And it starts out with, is DJ Archer a stalker? So if you missed the show last week or you can't listen all the time, we are putting out a Supercuts episode on our YouTube channel on Inside Bowling. Make sure you check that out. It's pretty funny. I watched it back and actually laughed at some of these things that I forgot about that happened on the show. Also, we've had an outpouring of people sending us messages, either critiquing the show, but a lot of positive energy coming our way. And one of the things that happened is we work with bowlerx.com. They're one of our clients that we work with their marketing. And Lee and Krista Sant from BowlerX said, hey, I want to get involved in the program. So we've got a new segment that we're going to have every single day. And this is the time of the day that we're going to get to it. And it's a complete ripoff of the Dan Patrick Show, but I think it's an important way to get everybody involved in the program. So what we're going to do is Matt is going to be my Danette, so to speak, and he is going to give me a couple of different options for a poll question on each and every show. And today, Matt's got a couple of options for me today. So, Matt, the Bowler X poll question every day on the show. We'll talk about what we're going to put out. It'll be available on Twitter, and then we'll give the updates of the poll question on the next show. So, what do you have for me on our first edition of the Bowler X poll question?
So, Mike, I'm going to give you two options here, two choices of questions. All right. The first one is, when do you think we will return to bowling and bowl our first game on the lanes again? And the choices are, May, June, July, or August or later. So we got four choices, right? Okay.
Go on.
And yep. The next one is, what age group do you think the next PBA Tour champion will fall in? So when we all return back to bowling and the PBA starts back up, what age bracket do you think whoever wins that event will fall in? Okay. And it's going to be 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, or 50 and over.
I like both ones, but just because I think it's top of mind, let's go ahead and put that poll question out there on Twitter right now. Let's pick the one. When will we get back to bowling? Let's go with that one. So Matt's going to post that to Twitter right now. And while he does that, I did talk about last week about these boxes that I got in at my house. I picked up a lot, and what a lot is when you purchase a bunch of stuff from one person and you get a little bit of a better deal on it. But I want to show some of the things that I got right here from PBA star bowler, bowled 300 on television, Bob Benoit. I picked up this lot of stuff from Bob Benoit, and I couldn't help myself over the weekend, and I started opening this stuff. I was going to open it on the air, but I want to show you what I got. So, and I'm sure our guest, when he comes on, will want to talk. This is the old Critical Mass polo shirt right here. Do you remember this? This one right here. This is it's got Bob Benoit's name on the back. Awesome. He sent me all these shirts. I got 45 of them. This is a whip shirt. And he was on AMF staff right here. No name on the back. And a lot of these are going to go up on our eBay store if you want to get in touch with us and get some of these. He was on AMF staff. This is an Ultra C shirt right here. No name on the back. King Louis. I've got a lot of Monksing wear here, which was big on the tour. I've got a Track Synergy shirt right here, Munsing wear. Bob, no name on the back. It's got the old PBA logo on the sleeve right here. So I've got 45 of these shirts. I want to show here's another Track shirt right here, Synergy. And I've also got this one here, still got the tag on it. Bob never wore this, but it's a Code Red Critical Mass shirt. Bob Benoit on the back, and he never wore it. So he had it embroidered and never wore it. Still got the tag. And then I got some bowling balls. I posted this on my personal Facebook page, but I got 2 Code Reds, my favorite ball of all time. I'm bringing it up here. Here's the box right here. And then I've got, show you the ball, pull it out. Don't want to waste too much time here. But I got 6 balls from the guy. And here it is, original Code Red in the box. Awesome pin placement on this thing, too. Look at how far the pin is out. You can do some great things with this drill, but I'm not going to drill it, of course. And I got a bunch of other balls that I'll show you at the end of the show. But I got all this stuff. I'm going to put a lot of this on our eBay store, Inside Bowling eBay. But I want to thank Bob Benoit for hooking me up and getting my greatest favorite bowling ball of all time. I have 2 of them now, undrilled. Matt, what do you think?
I think that you as soon as you ordered these things, you were like, "Hey, Matt, guess what?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "I just got it all, man. I hit the jackpot." I was like, "What do you mean you hit the jackpot?" He's like, "I just got 45 Bob Benoit PBA shirts," and I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know that. No disrespect here. I just didn't know that Bob Benoit shirts were that hot of a commodity out here on the market." And then you're like, "No, well, okay, that was great, but here's why I really am so excited." And you showed me the bowling balls that you picked up, and it must be cool. It must be cool for you. I'm not like a bowling ball junkie like that, where I have favorite bowling balls, but I'm not going to go out there and buy them, But for you, that's really cool, and I'm sure it brings back a lot of really cool memories. And I'm sure that temptation to drill it is there, but I know you, and I know you're not going to drill it, and I know you're probably also not going to ever sell those. Those are going to be yours forever. So that's
cool. The code Reds at this point, I'm planning on keeping both, and I'm probably going to keep some of these Track shirts, but I'm gonna liquidate a lot of stuff. I got a bunch of other stuff. I got a 1979 White Dot, brand new in the box as well, which I might bring that out when we bring in our guest, which we're 10 minutes into the program, had a lot to cover. And I think it's important to bring in our guest now. Before you bring him up, I want to just say a couple things about our guest today. First of all, when you look back at the history of bowling, there are some polarizing players of all time. This guy we're having on the program today was polarizing. Polarizing because of the way that he threw the bowling ball during the time and the era that he was a bowler. Polarizing because he wasn't a square, so to speak. This guy, he had a lot of emotion, and he had haters and he had people that loved him. But I can tell you this: when he stepped off the lanes with the people I've spoke to prepping for this show, and from what I've observed over the years, with the many years of working in bowling, everybody loves this guy off the lanes. And the job that he's done as a color analyst as well over the years, he often gets overshadowed by Peterson and Burton, but he did a hell of a job when he's done it and still does do it sometimes as well. Super humble dude and just enjoys life. He's retired now. He loves golf. He loves wine, but he's known for his bowling. And I've got a couple stats here in my hand. He won 22 titles on the PBA Tour, including 4 majors. He won 1996 in Detroit, which was the one that I remember the most, being a 40-year-old person. And he hadn't won since 1988, and that was a memorable moment. And we'll talk about it on today's show. He won he started bowling on tour in 1971, took a hiatus, came back to the tour in 1975, and won the Fresno Open. So this guy here, he is just an unbelievable person, and we're blessed to have him on the show today. And glad to have him. And he's also a PBA league owner. So we're looking, our manager, we're looking forward to talking to him about that. So let's bring in today's guest, Marshall Holman, PBA Hall of Famer. There he is. Marshall, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, nice to see you, Mike. Man, good to see you. I got to correct something. I was a junior in high school in 1971. I believe I started the tour. In fact, I know I started the tour in the summer of 1974. And so just for, yeah. So anyway, but it's good to be here, and I enjoy your show, and nice to be a part of it.
Yeah, Matt's been doing a lot of research. He's been digging up a lot of stuff here. So maybe some of the stuff that we found.
Yeah, no, I found something about you going out and earning like $500 in '71, and then obviously it wasn't. So I don't know if you were out on tour then. Assuming as a sophomore in high school, you probably.
I thought that was. I bowled in the Portland Open as an amateur. Gosh, I think it might have been 71. I thought it was 72 or 3, but I made the cut, and I was absolutely amazed. I mean, it was the greatest moment of my life up to that point. And I remember I had a Harry Smith tight line and a Don Carter commemorative, one rubber ball, one plastic ball, with absolutely zero grip on either. And when I was a young man, I had a pretty good hand, and I could rev it up pretty damn good. And I'm watching these pros outhook me, and I'm thinking, these are bowling gods. I just love it. I'm watching it. I don't know how they're doing it, but boy, look at that. Look at Don McCune hook the ball. Looks like he's got such a soft hand, but I don't know how he's doing it. Well, they were all soaking bowling balls. That's how they were doing it, and they were out hooking me. I made the top 24. I finished in a solid 24th place, and it was so much fun. I had the time of my life.
Marshall, we were talking yesterday as we were getting this thing set up, and it's a miracle that you're even here today after what we went through yesterday. We were talking, and you said that you threw the same bowling ball for like 3 years on tour.
1977, 78, 79. It was a Bonanza yellow dot, 5U 66953. I wrote that number down so many times because for 3 years, I had it resurfaced a couple of times. You know, you can't even, there's just no way you could ever do that in today's game. You can't use the same ball maybe 2 weeks in a row, and you have to have such a large arsenal. You know, I maintain that, and we all know the game has changed so much over the years, but one of the privileges that I had was to have a ball that not only reacted well, but I always had difficulty with, when you drill it out, you work the thumb hole and the fingers. I can never get the feel quite right. This ball felt good. So in my day, I would opt for a ball that felt good over a ball that might even have a better track, toward the pocket with the roll, because the feel was so important to me. And, we made these rudimentary balls work back in the day. Today's bowlers have to be mad scientists and not only throw it great, but if you don't have the right ball in your hand, you're a dead man. Back in my day, you could make the wrong ball work.
Yeah, and that's just unbelievable to think about because it's all about bowling balls now today. I posted these 2 Code Red bowling balls yesterday on my Facebook page, and I got more comments, more shares, more things than almost anything. I could say that, I'm having a baby or something, and nobody would care nearly as much about bowling balls. So it's just
Yeah.
amazing to see how the game has changed and how people have just gone nuts over these bowling balls, and really shows that the manufacturers are so important in bowling today.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, and it's been that way for a number of years now, where if you don't have the right ball in your hand, it'd be like being on a golf course and you've got a 60-yard shot and you got to hit a high, soft shot and you're trying to use your driver.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah. Marshall, we want to get into some topics here, and we want to lead with the most current topic that there is. You've been given a little bit of notoriety here recently because you are the team manager of a new expansion PBA league team, the Milwaukee Brew City Ballers. Is that the right name?
Brew City, yep, the Brew City Ballers. Yep,
Okay.
that's it.
So how did you come about being a manager for this, and how excited are you going into the draft?
Well, Tom Clark, commissioner of the PBA, he asked me last year if I was interested in maybe being a manager of one of the teams, and it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounded fun when he asked, and there's a lot more to it than I really thought there would be when he first asked me. But I've been fortunate to have had a nice career and done a lot of things in bowling. And this is an avenue to keep me tied into the game, and I said yes, and I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow we're going to have a coin flip between myself and Amleto Monticelli, the manager of the Vegas team, to see who gets the first pick in the draft, and I still don't know. I don't know which way I'm going to go. There's so many great choices out there, but we'll start by seeing who gets to pick first tomorrow.
Tails never fails, Marshall. Tails never fails. Just remember that, buddy.
I want you to remember it because you could be wrong. You've got let me do the math, about a 50-50 chance.
Nice. Good on your feet there, Marshall. I like it.
Yeah.
So Marshall, I was invited a couple of weeks ago to be on the Beef and Barnsey show, and they did a mock draft 2.0, and I got to draft your team. And I would like for Matt to play the clip right now of how I drafted your team, and we'll get your feedback. My pick, a big surprise here, is Ryan Simonelli. Ryan Simonelli is my first pick. We're going with Patrick Hanrahan with our second pick. Patty Hanrahan right here. We are selecting Matt McNeil with our third pick.
Matt Sanders will be the fourth pick on the Milwaukee something team.
Well, we are going to take Michael Martell with our final pick. Okay, Marshall. So the trend there is I took Simonelli, I took Packy Hanrahan, then I took Matt McNeil, then I took Matt Sanders, and I took Michael Martell. So as you can tell, I took all left-handers for the Milwaukee team. Your thoughts about selecting all left-handers on your team?
Well, that would take a very large set of cojones. It's bang or bust. If you take all lefties, I don't know. It's intriguing. I like it because it's thinking outside the box. I'd have liked it better if you just told me secretly and I could have done it. They're going to go, that's the Flanagan team. That's a Flanagan team. But I don't know. I like the buzz that it would create. But gosh, there's lots of great picks out there. Amleto and I are at a disadvantage. We're going to be drafting our first three players first because all the other teams have 3 players they protected, and they protected great players. So, I don't have access to some of the best players on tour because they're gone. We'll see. It's a certainly much food for thought for me, but I don't know. It's basically what you have done is you've taken a confusing situation and then multiplied it to make it more confusing. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. So here's the thought process behind it. First of all, I found it very interesting going into this draft because I was you a couple weeks ago, and I'm a
with much longer hair.
Well, barely right now, but
even now.
I guess so. You're right. So last week or 2 weeks ago when we were doing this, right, I get this invitation from Barnes and Stu, and then they say you're going to be drafting alongside John Burkett and Chad Murphy and also Jeff Goodger. And I knew that, a lot of people were going to be watching this, so I had to really think about it, just like you're doing right now. I went through this and I wanted to try to figure out a way that I could win. And I just thought, and I also wanted to get a lot of publicity for my new franchise, right? Because it's also important about the ratings too, right? How awesome would it be to be the lead story coming into the broadcast, no matter if you're bowling against the defending champions or the home team or against Belmo or whoever it is, and you're the lead with 5 lefties. And I just thought to myself, you're absolutely right with what you said, Marshall, is you're at a huge disadvantage by not having. Some teams have 3 Hall of Famers on the team or have bowled multiple years together. And I thought, what would be the best thing to do? I also considered Sean Rash with the first pick and then pick 4 lefties to go with them. But I'm not so sure that if Rash was sitting next to me, he would have agreed with that strategy. And you got to have your main guy wanting to be on board with what the strategy is. So, you've got some options here. I'm going to give you a couple other little ideas just for you to think about. There is this group called the House, and we're very close to the House. It's the Brad and Kyle clan. And there are enough people in the draft that you could pick all members of the House and you could have them bowl together. They're going to all room together. They're going to have great chemistry. A lot of them are younger and just came off the collegiate ranks and work really well together. And I think that could be a good strategy. And then you've also got this strategy. If you take Rash first, you could basically draft an entire Wichita State alum team as well and go after it with that angle. So there's a few different options there for you, bud.
Yeah, you're right. There are options, and I'm glad the draft is not happening tomorrow. I believe, is it on the 17th or the 15th?
I have it on my calendar for the 17th currently.
17th. So I'm going to have a fairly good idea of what I want to do prior to the 17th, and then Amleto has a lot to do with who I pick because he very well may pick somebody that I want, and so that'll change things as well. But boy, it's very, very intriguing, and I like things that are different. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
And you mentioned that you would have liked of me to say this off the air, so it wouldn't be Flanagan's idea, and I understand that point of it as well. But more so, if it doesn't work, now you have an excuse to deflect the attention away from yourself.
Hey, it's like being a politician or a meteorologist. The 2 greatest jobs in the world because you don't have to be accountable for shit.
That's right. You're right.
Can I say that word? Is that okay?
This is an unfiltered program, Marshall.
Beautiful.
You like that?
I use that a lot about being unaccountable. It's politicians and meteorologists. Anyway, yeah, I could blame you, and but we'll see. It's going to be fun.
Let's bring Matt back in. Matt has prepared and has done a lot of deep diving over the weekend to look back on your career and just the things that have happened in your life. And from what I understand, Matt, you two have a lot in common.
Well, I'm not sure about a lot in common, but I was doing some research on you, Marshall, and I think first off, it's an honor to have you on this show, especially. I mean, we've got like 3 viewers, and for you to be willing to come on and spike us up to like 12 is huge. And And it's really cool. So I've always obviously had respect for you as a bowler and just as a person. And to do more research about you and to learn more about you has been really cool, and about your family. And to learn that you were raised Jewish. I was also raised Jewish, so just a really cool connection that we have there, and also finding out that Mark Roth also was Jewish, and just learning more about the game and learning more about yourself and about your family. And I want to pull up this article I found about you and see if you remember this. This is an article from Sports Illustrated. It was titled "Too Bold to Cut the Mustard." Do you remember this?
I do.
And I found a couple of really interesting things in here. I want to read. I found some of it ridiculous, found some of it interesting, and I want to read. In the beginning, they hit you really hard, and they say I'm not perfect, Marshall Holman says, but I'm as close as anybody can get. Right you are, Marshall Holman. You are a perfect booer, a perfect twerp, a perfect pest, a perfect pain in the you-know-what. Yes, Marshall, you are the perfect hot dog. And I thought to myself, I've been insulted quite a few times. I've never been called the perfect. You are the perfect hot dog. I don't know what kind of an insult that really is. But you had some haters back in the day, Marshall.
Oh yeah.
You did, and also in this article, you talk about people that sent you threats. People that sent you notes, and they knocked you down because you were Jewish, and people told you that they wish you'd get cancer, and like extremely negative thoughts and statements like that. How did you deal with all that, being the pioneer kind of showing your emotions within the game of bowling?
Well, within the first few years, I started the tour in '74. I'd say between '74 and '78 or '9. To use a quote from Gone with the Wind, frankly, Scarlett, I didn't give a damn. I didn't care. I wasn't looking to necessarily make any friends early in my career. I was just trying to establish myself and do the best bowling I could. As I got older, into my later 20s and early 30s, and I started embracing the fact that people were liking me. So early in my career, those comments, they went one ear and out the other. They're mean, but can you imagine if a young Marshall Holman were to come out on the tour today in this 24/7 world of instant information and the internet with all of social media? Oh my God, it would have been hundreds of times worse. So in that respect, I came out in a good time on tour, where only a select people could bash me. And like I said, throughout the first few years of my career, it didn't really bother me. I didn't really care.
Yeah, and I think that people often coin Pete Weber as the bad boy of bowling, right? They've got this image around Pete. And quite frankly, to me, you really paved the way for people like Pete. And then if you talk about modern day today on tour, a good friend of mine, but somebody certainly who can be a hothead on the lanes, is Anthony Simonson. And I think a similarity that you have, at least with Simo, because I know Simo very well, is that on the lanes, very intense, very eccentric, very emotional, but then off the lanes, a gentleman, someone who's very kind to others. Anthony would give his shirt off his back for anybody else, even if he didn't know them. And so I think it's important, and it made me gain even more respect for you, knowing that you were really the pioneer when it came to, I guess you could say, blowing a gasket, being emotional, taking your anger out, whatever it was. And my question that I have in regards to this as well is, you had the support of some of the greatest bowlers of all time on the tour when you were acting that way. Carmen Salvino, Earl Anthony, Mark Roth were all guys that were like, let Marshall be Marshall. Just let him do his thing. This is what we need for the sport, and there's no problem with Marshall acting that way. Did their support encourage you to continue to act the same way, or were you just going to do it regardless?
Oh, I don't think it really had a lot to do with how I was acting. The one thing about being in today's bowling as opposed to back in my time is it was a little more of a dictatorship back then, and if you did get out of line, they would suspend you, and in 1980, if you go to YouTube and you type in Marshall Holman, the first thing you're going to see is the foul line. You really don't get a good look at me actually kicking it, but I kicked the foul line in Las Vegas. It dislodged. It wasn't screwed in very tight, and then Joe Antonora decided that I needed a 10-week vacation and a $2,500 fine, and it was all very calculated. The suspension would bring me bring me back on tour for the great and the greatest, which coincidentally paid a minimum of $2,500. So I went ahead and instead of fighting it and maybe costing myself the great and the greatest, I went ahead and we'll see me go up here. And I thought I threw this ball pretty good, but
it looked good off your hand, but it just
I left the bucket, and it was like, damn. I mean, and there it is. And I will tell you quite frankly that I had many, 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 many good years after that incident, but I was not the same passionate bowler ever again. And Joe Antonora, may you rest in peace, that was a pretty tough blow for the rest of my career, because I bowled for a living because I was still good at it and I was making a living at it, but I never had the heart for it that I had prior to that. And I don't know if I've ever articulated that before, but that's the fact.
I really don't like to hear this, Marshall. I didn't know you were going to hit us with this one. Man, so this instance made you change your demeanor as a makeup as a professional bowler in that fire.
It didn't. I don't know that it changed. It didn't really change the way I worked. I still worked with intensity, and I still worked with sometimes a little too much anger, but the core love of what I was doing was diminished because of sitting out for 10 weeks, being fined $2,500. It basically took about a third of my yearly income out of my pocket. And I can't remember, what year was it? 80, 81, 79, whatever it was. It was like taking about $35,000 out of my earnings, which was a lot of money back then. And but I'm not the only person that was suspended. I think Bo Burton got a little vacation for a while, and Pete Weber, back in the day, he was also sent home packing for other reasons. But it was a long time ago, and even though there's still a little scar tissue, it's not something that I think about. And I'm blessed to be doing pretty well here in Southern Oregon.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought this up on the program today, man. I appreciate you sharing that very much here.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about that particular show as well.
Sure.
You saw me open this show with all these relics and artifacts that I have from Papa Noit's personal collection. Do you have any of those old Lamode shirts or any of those old shirts that you wore back in the day?
I don't know. I have very, very, very few shirts left, because over the years I've had numerous requests from people to sign a shirt for them. And so I don't have maybe just a couple of shirts left, and they were the only reason I have them left because I think they were dark and the Sharpie wouldn't show up on them or whatever. But no, most of that stuff is gone. As far as old bowling balls are concerned, I wish I still had the white dot from the '76 Tournament of Champions. It's gone. I do have both of the red U dots that I used in the first two bowling shootouts. They're at Lava Lanes here in Medford, Oregon, and the ownership at Lava Lanes did a great thing a number of years ago when they asked me if I would allow them to have some of my memorabilia, and which is it belongs in a bowling center. You know, I have very little of my bowling related things in my house. I've got a U.S. Open trophy to the right of me, and I've got a couple of others, but for the most part, everything's at Lava Lanes.
So you have 2 U.S. Open trophies, right? Do you still own them both?
I do. One's at Lava Lanes, and one is right there.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I'll trade you. You know, I know how much you love bowling balls. I've got a 1979 white dot right here,
That's
brand
pretty cool.
in the box from part of my Benoit collection.
Uh-huh.
How about we swap this? Here's the deal. We'll swap this one right here, plus that strategy I gave you to win the PBA league, and I'll give you a C note for that U.S. Open trophy. How about that? I'll put it on the shelf right behind me.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That was an easy call.
Since you're showing us around your place there, I also see behind you, you know, we partner with Sam Villarreal. He's a partner of ours at Inside Bowling. And I'm seeing this picture here. If you're watching online, we're seeing a picture of you with the hole-in-one on the golf course. Was that done by Sam?
It was last year. In fact, it's got a date on it. Let's see, what's the date of that? It's July 10th. Was July 10th of 2018. So it was 2 years ago. And I was on the golf course, and Sam was flying in that day for the member guests at my club. And so I make a hole-in-one. It's a 155-yard shot. I hit a 8-iron in or whatever, and so I messaged Sam. Sam's in Chicago. He's got a layover in Chicago, and he goes, "What color shirt were you wearing?" And it's like, who the hell cares? I said, no, what color shirt? Okay, I was wearing whatever color shirt, and he did that between that phone call and getting to my house that evening.
He can work quick. He can work
he can. And he's caricatures are great because they accentuate different parts of your anatomy. And he always takes the split between my 2 front teeth and makes them a little larger. But the other thing he does, he always makes me a lot stronger than I am. So you get the good with the bad.
Yeah, he did one for me as well. And he also partners with the House with Brad and Kyle. We sell their merch on our website, and he did this really cool T-shirt. We sold a bunch of them with the House. And speaking of which, Kyle Sherman a little bit ago just chimed in, and he said that his first real experience with Marshall was when you were coaching the USA team at the World Series, and Kyle got 3 off the right his first shot on TV. First impression. Do you remember that?
I do. I maybe nerves or whatever, but a nice young man, and certainly has a strong game, and he's picked things up quite a bit from that initial bad shot.
Matt, what else you got for Marshall today?
I want to talk about one more thing, not necessarily relating to that article, but relating to your family, mostly your dad. Your dad became known as Holman the Pullman back in the 50s, I believe it was.
Before I was born.
Yeah, and he referred to, at least in this article, as America's leading underachiever. Was that something that he called you often, and what was the messaging behind that? What kind of a role did he have in your bowling, I guess, throughout your career and growing up?
Well, throughout my career, he was a great supporter. When I was a younger man in school and would spend more time bowling than working on my schoolwork, he thought I was wasting my time, and so that's probably where that came from. He did a radio show in 1953 on top of flagpole in San Francisco, and I don't know if you're old enough you maybe have to Google what a bosun's chair is, but you basically sit in this leather chair, and then they reel you up to the platform on the flagpole, and he did that for a number of months, and then one day it was especially windy, and he told his boss that I can't go up there, it's dangerous. And his boss, very nice man. Once again, nothing personal, Joe Antonora, but I think his boss was a little bit like you, and since he didn't go up that day, they just fired him. So, so what very nice, very nice, tolerant person. Not, but when I was in school, my father was concerned that I was wasting my time, and 999,000 times out of a million, you've probably been right. I was very lucky that I got on tour and did well. He became a very big supporter of mine, and he was very proud and loved the fact that I was a successful professional bowler. And then with him being involved in media all the years of his working life, he was thrilled that his son was working for ESPN and then for CBS and doing these national live broadcasts. And I have the only broadcast background I have is a father who was a broadcaster. And he worked his entire life to do okay, from a notoriety standpoint. And here's his son, who by virtue of being able to throw a bowling ball, gets to be on national television. And he would watch every telecast, and he'd have a pad and a pencil, and he would critique everything that I did. And he did it because he wanted to help me to get better. He didn't do it because he was trying to demean my performance. He just wanted me to be the best that I could be. And he passed away in July 27th of 2001, I think a month or two before Earl tragically passed away. And he was a very interesting guy. He was very polarizing here in Southern Oregon in the media. You either really liked Phil Holman or you didn't like Phil Holman. He also did a show called Phil's Films where he had really bad movies, B movies, and he was the host, and he would do live commercials for his sponsors, and he would kind of diss his sponsors in a kind of a quirky, fun shtick way. But definitely, he was much more of a character than I am.
That's a really cool, man. And do you think that that's what shaped you as a person with your I described you as polarizing in the open?
Yeah, I think so. I think I got a lot of that from my father, and I got a lot of competitiveness from my mother as well. And I'm fortunate. My mom's 88 and she's still doing pretty well, and she lives about 2.5 hours north of me. I'm hoping to get up to see her, even with COVID-19 going on. I'm going to take my SUV and put a couple chairs in the back and drive up to Eugene. And if it's a nice day, we can sit out in the parking lot and, be 6 feet apart and hang out together. So, but I certainly was shaped, and I think we're all shaped by, our upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, speaking of Oregon, and that's where you're at. Are you still in the Medford area then?
Yep.
Is that where
I am still in Medford, basically, except for 8 years from 77 to 85. I lived about 10 miles from where I am now, but most of my life I've lived in this eastern part of Medford. So it's only I am a mile and a half from the parking lot of my golf club. It's been my playground since I was in my early 20s, and I can thank bowling for the opportunity to have played as much golf as I've played, because I played a lot of great courses when I was on tour, and bowling enabled me to make a living so that I could afford to be a member of the golf club.
Where did the nickname Meteor come from? The Medford Meteor.
Medford Meteor. I think Larry Lickstein I think he was responsible for that. He also was responsible for Holman the Bowlman, because Holman the Bowlman became kind of was from Holman the Pullman to Holman the Bowlman. And another interesting story that you may not know about, my father, back when I was very young, he was in the pizza business with another person back in San Francisco. And one of the guys that worked for my father was a very, very young man by the name of Lenny Nicholson. Now, Lenny Nichols went on to do, the lanes for the tour back in my really, really great days. Lenny did not like me to start with, because I beat his friend Billy Hardwick in the Tournament of Champions. And then Lenny found out that my dad was who he was. And my dad and Lenny's dad were really, really close friends back in the day. And Lenny and I we've had a great relationship for 40 plus years. But pretty interesting that Len Nicholson worked for my father back in the day.
That is pretty cool, man. And currently, right now, you're involved in a few different things. Also, just I want to make sure
Mhm.
you get this plug in there. You've got a love for bowling. You've got a love for your community there. You got a love for golf. But you also have a love for wine. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're involved with the wine industry?
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine that I played golf with, was a winemaker, at a pretty large winery here in Southern Oregon. Also spent 20 plus years in Napa Valley at some very prestigious wineries. But then wanted to go out on his own and do his own thing, and he asked me to be a part of it on a number of occasions. And I kept thinking, well, what are you, crazy? I have nothing to add. I don't know anything about wine. I like wine, but I don't really know much about it. And so I finally succumbed to saying, sure. The guy's name is John Quinones, not John Quinones from ABC News. But if you Google John Quinones, he's the second John Quinones. He's the winemaker. But so John and I got into business with Diamondback Wine. That's been his private label off and on since like the year 2000. And he resurrected it back in 2012 with his first vintages. And I've been aboard for about 4 years now. And I thought I knew something about wine until I got involved in it. And I found out that I really was a neophyte. I've got a lot more knowledge now, but John makes great wine. It's depending on your economic level, it's either really expensive wine, moderately expensive wine, or I'm not buying that wine. It's not expensive enough. It's, our wines are between $29 and $75 per bottle, but it's small batch, handcrafted wines. And so when I want good wine, I've got it. In fact, I got a case sitting about 3 feet away from me. But it's really exciting. And our website is diamondback.wine. And if anybody's interested, this is something that not a lot of wineries can offer. But I'm here to be your official wine concierge. And
Great.
you can private message me if you want any of my wines. There are a couple of states, unfortunately, Utah, doggone it, Utah, you're a pain in the wine butt. We can't ship wine to Utah.
Okay.
It's just one of the, there's a few states that are tough, and Utah's one of them, but most states are easy, and we ship wine all over the country, and it's exciting.
Yeah, speaking of Utah, we have somebody checking in on the program. A friend of ours, Mike Jazz, now checking in. Old Jazz says, I love Marshall and his sense of humor. I also like that I was faster than him on the snow.
That's right. So Mike's got this stupid app on his phone that he told me about. It's called Ski Tracks, and Ski Tracks it shows you how fast you've gone, the elevation, how many runs, the time, all these fun little stats. Well, the problem with Ski Tracks is if you're competitive, and Mike and Marshall are competitive, you end up having a little contest with yourself. How much faster can I go? So a couple of years ago, on a beautiful bluebird, perfect snow, everything was great. I think I went 60.1 mile an hour on skis. And Mike is a snowboarder, and he had told me earlier that he went 60 miles per hour. He went like 60.3 or 4. So he has gone faster than me. I am out of that competition. 40 is probably a little too fast for me. 60 that's suicidal. I mean, I'm just fortunate that I was able to stay on board and not fall. If you fall at that speed, you're going to hurt yourself. But yeah, Mike's a good friend. He's a great coach, and he was a heck of a bowler back in the day. And one of the things I miss about not going to the USBC this year is seeing my buddy Mike.
Yeah, and Jazz is great at coaching bowlers, but I don't know if I'd take any ski instruction from Jazz now. Just food for thought, anybody, because that sounds awful.
Well, we've been talking about going out and him snowboarding and me skiing together. And we've been talking about it for years, and it's never happened. I still hope it can happen at some point, but yeah, he's good people.
Well, if you ever make it out here this way, he lives on the other side of the mountain than me, and I'd love to see if you ever make it out this way. It'd be awesome to hang out with you guys and maybe do some skiing or something.
Yeah.
We've got about 10 minutes left on the show, and we've prepped a lot of stuff here today, and we're only going to get to so much of it, as always happens with our guests. But I think Matt has a clip queued up here, and this is the one that kind of sticks out to me. And you've seen this one many times. This was in
Ah,
96 in Detroit.
yeah.
I want to set this up for everybody. Your last win before this one was in 1988, according to PBA.com, and you were in Detroit, and you competed and had another tremendous week. And you were on the show. You can go and cue the clip here, Matt. You were wearing a green, and you were throwing the red pulse, I believe, on this television.
Yep.
And
Lucky.
this is the 10th frame here, I believe, right, Matt?
Yep. This is the 10th frame, needs the mark to win.
I tried to throw it away.
Did you like the shot off your hands?
Oh, no, I didn't like it. And I was nervous as heck. I was very, very nervous. I'm still nervous. Why? I'm just, needing to make this spare. I was a pretty good spare shooter back in the day, so I was confident, but still nervous. And
here's the moment. I love the emotion there.
yeah. What's interesting about that is I keep saying I'm back, and I really wasn't back. I was back in the booth the next week, and I never was a factor again.
So going back to that moment when that happened, what do you consider this the greatest accomplishment in your career? Was this the best moment?
Well, I consider it almost something that was given to me as a gift for all of the bad bowling and bad breaks I had on television. I don't know the exact number of telecasts I made, but it's 120 or 30 shows. I was not a good television bowler. And part of that was my stubbornness, my attitude, and part of it was the way that the lanes reacted to the lights of television back in the day. It was, the crankers and the power players, we could make the telecast, but when we made the telecast, it seemed like they were always better for the people that threw it straighter. Once you got to TV, so I had a bad TV record. Some of it were bad breaks, some of them were bad shots, some were bad decisions, but I was fortunate. I only made the show twice at Riviera Lanes, and I won both those shows, so that was lucky. But I led 21 tournaments. I only won 7 of them. I went from 1981 to late 1983 without a win, and I think there were 17 or 18, 20 telecasts in that time frame where I couldn't win a game, and it begins to play on your mind, and so if you need to compete in athletics with a focus but a clean brain, and once you start bringing baggage in, it becomes difficult. So I don't consider that tournament my best win. I consider it maybe a gift, maybe a little bit of payback. What would my best win be? In 1975, when I won in Fresno, I bowled Carmen Salvino, and he was my guy to watch when I was a kid. I loved Carmen because he was a great bowler and a great showman. And so I bowled Carmen, and he was just a few pins ahead of me. It was not a televised tournament. And so whoever won the game would win the tournament. And I started out with the first 9 strikes against Carmen Salvino and won the tournament. And then my second win in Hawaii later that year, I beat Carmen Salvino again. And I love Carmen Salvino. And, he's such a funny guy. He was, I made a star out of you. I made a star out of you.
Of course.
Because it always gets back to Carmen, which is great. it's the way it should be. He's the best, and I don't miss throwing bowling balls, but boy, do I miss my friends, and that's another one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be doing this, being the manager of the Milwaukee team, and being able to see my friends. Some of the older guys on tour that I bowled with, some of the younger guys on tour that I've gotten to know during my time as a broadcaster, and during my time, doing webcasting for the tour.
Yeah, and I think that you're one of the most underrated color analysts in the history of bowling, because of Burton and Randy, who have been in the booth for so long. And
yeah, and they've
listen
both done a great job. I probably would have been doing color a lot longer, but when the PBA was going through new ownership in the early 2000s, they wanted to shake things up, and so they decided that they were going to do an audition where everyone did like one show, and then they would pick who they wanted. They had already decided they want to get rid of me because I was yesterday's news, and that's fine. Color commentary is, for the most part, a short-lived position until the next thing comes along. So, but I wasn't real happy about that, but it turned out to be a great thing. I came home and I met this great gal, and we ended up getting married. We started a business together. We had a very successful business. Unfortunately, the marriage went sideways. I'm no longer married. I'm no longer involved in that business. It was a tax business, and no longer involved in that. But they were great years. And as Garth Brooks said, I could have missed the pain, but I would have missed the dance. So
I love it.
It all worked. It worked well. Even with that marriage dissolving, those were some great years. It was fun starting a business from nothing and turning it into a very successful business. So that was cool.
Well, you've done it all, man. We're running out of time. We got to go. Marshall, it was an absolute pleasure having you on our show today. Good luck in the PBA League draft. And maybe after the draft, we'll have a post-draft show. We'll invite you back. Go inside your head and see exactly what you did and what you're thinking.
Okay, Mike. Thanks a lot, Matthew. Thank you. Nice being on. And Mike, I might be calling you and picking your brain for more ideas on this draft.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, man. And we'll definitely plug your wine for sure. And we'll see you down the road.
I appreciate it. Private message me. I'm your man. All right.
All right, Matt. Well, awesome talking to Marshall. Didn't get to everything we wanted to get to today, but your thoughts on Marshall?
He's just a legend, man. He's done everything. He's had the world betting against him. He's had people, that love him and have rooted him on and helped him throughout his career. And it's just really cool to see how everything's come full circle for him and how he just continues to impact the bowling industry.
Yep, that's for sure. So we're out of time, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget to check out our Twitter account at InsideBowling. Vote on the poll question. We'll have it back for you tomorrow. We'll have another poll question for you. Thanks to Bowler X for stepping up and wanting to be part of the show. Matt, this was a quick one. I got a call I got to get to, buddy.
All righty, man.
We'll see everybody tomorrow. Inside Bowling Show. Have a good one, everybody.